when people talk, listen, man, I'm going to raise that red flag.
This narrative, especially after 1 year.
1 year.
One bad year. It's one big splash move. And because I don't think people understand how much cap space we can create.
Alex, I want to ask you, because you're a very humble person.
And I'm never going to be right about anything.
Yeah.
I was right.
Well, hello, everybody. Hey, you, I don't like it, What is up? That is loud in my ear. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's better for the recording. What's up, guys? So today I'm going to talk about a topic that I've sort of stayed away from because if I even approached it, it would take a lot of work. So I've just stayed away because I don't have that much time to do work. So I was listening to, because when I work, I listen to just different Panthers content just so I can be as well informed as possible. And I was listening to Panthers Playbook. So this topic is not mine. They brought it up. So I was listening to them and they were talking about Evero. And we kind of moved on from that conversation. Like a lot of us have just kind of decided that bringing Evero back was the best choice, and it doesn't matter. We're bringing him back anyways. So why are we even talking about it? But for me, as you know, we need to hold this organization accountable, and we need to just not follow these narratives. So I'm going to just talk through numbers because what's happened is we've just assumed Evero is this really great defensive coordinator and that he was great on the Broncos and he was great last year and he just dealt with injuries this year and it was smart to keep him. So a big part of that narrative is because he's getting head coaching interviews and people want to interview him. And I know this is like hard to just say, but it's not just hard to say, it's hard to just deal with as people because it just exists and we got to address it. There aren't very many black coaches in the NFL. There just aren't, especially ones that are coordinators that could be hired as a head coach. So it's possible, and I'm not saying that it's definitely because of this, but it's very possible that he's getting these interviews just to appease the Rooney Rule. Because every single black head coach or coordinator can't go to every single interview for head coaching jobs or for other coordinator jobs. And they got to find qualified black coaches somewhere, right? So that is a very obvious reason why he could be getting these other interviews and why the narrative is he's so respected around the rest of the NFL. I'm not saying that is true. I'm just saying that is a quick alternative to the first narrative that he's well respected by other people in the industry, that he would get another head coaching job right away, or he's been up for head coaching jobs and he would get another defensive coordinator job easily. We just kind of created that, and I'm not really sure where that came from, but that's the narrative, right? And we sort of created that about Thomas Brown as well. So I don't want to debunk that narrative. I'm just saying that that is a possibility. So just assuming that that is a possibility, let's just dive deeper into the numbers. So this isn't a defensive coordinator's stat, but it's worth mentioning. Evero, as a defensive coordinator, is 12-39, just overall. That includes Denver when he had 5 wins, and it includes the Panthers where he's had 7 total wins. That would be equal to the 5 in Denver was 28th in the league at that time. The 5 plus the 2, the first 2 he had in Carolina, 7, is tied for the worst record. And then overall, he has 12 wins, and that is less than Carolina's record without him, which is 14 wins. So let's just make sure we have that in the back of our mind. That's not an Evero stat. That's an overall stat. I'm not using that against him. I'm just saying it's worth mentioning. So Evero is tied for 5th in highest paid defensive coordinator with Brian Flores. I'm taking Mike Zimmer out of this because without Mike McCarthy, I don't think that he's coming back. So without him, we have Vic Fangio has $4.5 million salary. Steve Spagnuolo has $3.5 million salary. Aiden Durd has $2 million salary with Seattle. Brian Flores and Evero both make $1.8 million. Well, this year, Philadelphia was the number 1 defense in the league for points against. You make the highest salary, and you are number 1 in points against. That makes sense, right? Steve Spagnuolo is 3rd in points against this year. And he the 2nd highest. Well, he was the 3rd this past year behind Zimmer, but now he's 2nd. And the year before that, he was 2nd. So that makes sense. Aiden Durd took over a new team in Seattle. He had the 13th best defense as far as points against. And Brian Flores had the 5th best defense points against, and he's the 5th highest paid defensive coordinator. Evero's tied for 5th, and since he's been in Carolina, he's had the 29th most points against, and then the 32nd most points against, most all time. There's nuances that go into it. I'm just saying that's worth noting, right? 5th highest paid. So here's what I did. I went and just took this season away because everybody said that it was only because of injuries that's why we were so bad. There are 6 defensive coordinators that have not been fired over the last 3 years and still have jobs. We have Terrell Austin with Pittsburgh, Ryan Nielsen. Even though he's been 3 different places, he's never been fired from them. He just left on his own terms. Steve Spagnuolo, Shane Bowman, he's on the Titans, and now he's with the Giants. Jeff Ulbrich, he was with the Jets, and now he's with the Falcons, but neither one of those last 2 were fired. And Evero. So I just took those 6 because usually if you're not doing well enough, because that's the standard for every other team, you get let go. So some way or another, any of the other defensive coordinators have either been promoted to that or they've been let go at some point. They were a defensive assistant, whatever it was, but they were not a defensive coordinator from 2022 till now. So we're taking 2024 away, and we're using these 6 defensive coordinators. So I got their points against for all of them and combined them for those 2 years. So first we have Steve Spagnuolo with 38.1 points against. Second, we have Jeff Ulbrich with the Jets with 38.5 points against. Third, we have Ryan Nielsen with New Orleans and Atlanta at that time with 39.3 points against. Fourth, we have Terrell Austin, 39.7 points against. Fourth, we have Terrell Austin with Pittsburgh, 39.7 points against. Fifth, we have Shane Bowman with 41.1 points against with the Titans. And then last of those for 22 and 23 is Evero with 42.3 points against. Well, these are just numbers based on scoring defense, like how many points have been scored against you. And then I went to Team Rankings website, and they estimate what the points against for reasons that, you know, there's a fumble on the 20-yard line and they get a field goal. It takes all of that away, right? So that's including all of that. And Evero is 42.3. So he's the worst of these. So he's 6th in just these people, and he's the 5th highest paid defensive coordinator. That ain't great, right? And again, that is taking out this year. So here's what I did. I said, let's see what the Panthers were like without them. The 2 years that Evero has been with the Panthers, he's had a total of 53.4 adjusted points against. The Panthers with Phil Snow, college coach, were 44.1. So if we take that and we put it against all the other teams this year, the Panthers still would have been the worst scoring defense in the league. And before, it would have been 18th. So Evero has taken the Panthers from 18th to 32nd. And sure, we can talk about injuries. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to change your perspective because I'm just giving you a solid. I'm giving you 2 years worth of numbers for the Panthers versus 2 years of numbers with the Panthers. I took out this year and I ranked them against the rest of the defensive coordinators that have had jobs from 2022 to 2025. So I dig even further, right? And I say, well, we brought these players in, and the GM just didn't get good players. And then I look at the players. So let's just go with the players we had. So Brian Burns goes from two-time Pro Bowler. He had 9 sacks, 12.5 sacks. He goes from 62 tackles to 50, 12.5 sacks to 8. Then he goes to the Giants. Then he goes from 50 tackles with Evero to 71 tackles, 8 sacks to 8.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble to 2 forced fumbles. I go to Frankie Louvu. Frankie Louvu goes from 7.5 sacks to 5.5 sacks to 8 sacks. So 7.5 before Evero, 8 in Washington after Evero. So these are the 2 guys that you had that were like staples that were playing pretty much every game, right? So then I say, let's look at what all the other guys that I can possibly find because I'm not doing every single person. Then I look at Shy Tuttle, and everybody's like, oh, he failed here. At New Orleans, he had 49 tackles and 2 sacks. Here, he had 43 tackles and 0.5 sacks. Pretty much gave you the same production. So then you go to Von Bell. He goes from 77 tackles to 69 tackles. And he goes from 4 interceptions to 1 interception and 2 forced fumbles to 0 forced fumbles. Justin Houston, 14 total games. He had 9.5 sacks and 21 tackles. In 7 games here, he had 1.5 sack. So just say he plays every game. You're still getting a third of the production from Justin Houston in 1 year. Jadeveon Clowney. Last year he had 9.5 sacks. This year he had 5.5. 43 tackles and 36 tackles. Josie Jewell. Before he got here, he had 108 tackles and 3 sacks. Here he has 97 tackles and 3.5 sacks. So we're paying this guy to uplift a defense, right? He's the 5th highest paid defensive coordinator. And you're either getting worse production here or the same exact production here from all these guys. And we're blaming it on these guys that we're getting in, right? If everybody's doing it, it can't be on all of them. Something's got to be a problem. I'm all about don't change things unless you have a better solution. But you're paying this guy the 5th highest. This guy's the 5th highest paid defensive coordinator in the league. I'm thinking you could probably get somebody else paying him the 5th most amount of money in the league. And when you look at just 2022 and 2023, because you're telling me that this year is because he's hurt, you're the worst of the 6 people that haven't got fired yet. You're not in that class of top 5. And not only this, but does anybody like playing in the scheme? Is anyone successful? J.C. Horn, maybe? Josie Jewell? Like, who benefits? So let's talk about this. You as Panther fans, and I, want to draft an edge. We want, ideally, Abdul Carter. Right? Well, when we look at all of this data, Burns comes down 4.5 sacks. Louvu comes down 2 sacks. Jadeveon Clowney comes down 4 sacks. Justin Houston comes down, let's say, adjusted 6.5 sacks. Shy Tuttle comes down a sack and a half. So is edge important? Because it seems like we're throwing out edges that have been successful elsewhere. They're not. There's no statistical category that they're going up in. I don't know, but I'm more bringing this to light than I am saying we should do one thing or the other. But you have the 5th highest paid defensive coordinator, and now you've been the 29th worst defense in the league and the 32nd worst defense in the league. You had Pro Bowlers both years. You can say Bryce was the problem last year, but this year we held onto the ball. Like, pretty much all of the points against wasn't Bryce's fault. Andy Dalton threw a pick six, and Xavier Legette dropped a pass. They called it interception, but it was on Legette. Like, who are we blaming? Everybody has injuries. Tennessee, so Shane Bowman had the worst defense of all time. I mean, had the worst injury luck of all time. Like, it's documented. Adjusted games missed. Like, he went from had the most injured team of all time, and the next year he beat, like, they broke the record, and he still had better points against than Evero. I mean, something's got to be the problem, because we're bringing guys in that have production. Either their production doesn't change or drastically dips. Guys we had that you were saying didn't fit the scheme well, their production dropped, but we've replaced them with no one that has increased their production. There hasn't been one guy that's been like that we've given to Evero and he's like coached up, that they've gotten significantly better. Jordan Fuller was the starting safety on a Super Bowl team. I mean, wow. Are we sure he's good? Who's telling us? Why are they telling us he's good? I don't know. We weren't the most injured defense in the league. We spent the same amount of money on defense as offense. Last year we had a terrible offense. Offense significantly grew. Our first game of the season we allowed 47 points. Average the last 3 games of the season was 38 points. We started bad. Even when we were fully healthy, we started bad. 47 points. 47. Blame injuries if you want. I don't know. But we got to get better. And so far we see the 2 years combined with Evero is still the worst defense in the league. Even when it's adjusted for bad quarterback play or bad offensive play. And I didn't want to have this conversation but I think it's interesting. I think we got to be as informed as possible, because we do have these narratives going around of, it's just injuries, or, the rest of the league thinks he's great, or he was almost a head coach, or, like he would get a job tomorrow. I don't know. If you're a financial firm and your equities team has the worst drop in history, probably not going to hire that portfolio manager. I don't know. There's no conclusion to this, because 3 years isn't a ton of data, and 2 years isn't a ton of data for the same team. So it's the only conclusion that I can come to is that he ain't worth Brian Flores numbers. It's the only conclusion I can come to. So this is just an informative pod. It's not I have a definite opinion on it, but it's an eyebrow raise. We gotta look at the defense next year. Alright. Well, thanks for watching. Peace.